Okay, today what we're going to do, we're going to install the Lockrite diff lock into a GQ Patrol. Now, the Locker diff lock is similar to any of the other automatic diff locks, and that's the unit there. We'll just go through the step-by-step process and see how we go today. Okay, there's two ways to remove the axles. You can either undo the hub assembly, remove the spindle, and then get through the CV joint and pull the axle out, or you can just remove the whole knuckle off the CV joint and pull it out as one unit. Before you do it, you just check to see if you've got any free play. I do my wheel bearings fairly often, so I know they're right. So I'm going to take the whole spindle off the knuckle. Step once you get your wheel off is to remove the brake caliper. There's a bolt at the top behind the caliper, and there's a bolt at the bottom. Just the two bolts. I've already taken one out. And once you take the second one out, it's just a matter of taking the caliper off, just moving it out of the way. Okay, next we've got to remove the freewheeling hubs. You undo each of the bolts and you take the bolts out, and if that doesn't pull off the freewheeling hub, just give it a tap. Comes off like that. Into the axle shaft, there's the C-clip. You've got to remove the C-clip, so with your pliers, just open up the C-clip, take that off, put it aside. Then remove your spacers. As you can also probably see now, is I've tied up the caliper out of the way. Okay, the next step is to remove this the link from the arm here. I've got the pleasure of having a press that I can press it off with. Okay, and there she pops. So that's 20 tonnes that press it takes, and as you can see it was a fair bit just to get that undone. Now the next part is to remove the wiper blade in the back of the knuckle and the wiper blade retaining. Okay, the next part is just to remove the top of the kingpin bearing. You remove the 4 bolts, and all going well. You can see how much it's loosened up now. That pulls the bearing out, and you've got to be careful about the axle seal. We should be able to manoeuvre this whole knuckle off the bearing, off the bottom. Okay. The whole front removed as one piece, which means I don't have to readjust bearings or anything when I put it back together. As I can see is that there's no major wear in the axle shaft. There's a tiny little bit of dirt and mud in there, but it's pretty clean. Now what the job is, the axle's now sitting on the seals, which is not very good for it. So what we do is support it, and we slide it out, and that's the driver's side axle removed. Now what we do is we move to the other side, and we do exactly the whole same procedure on the other side. Okay, with the passenger side on the Australian vehicles, the only difference is you've got the drag link behind and you've got the steering link at the front. So on this side you've got to remove both so you can take off the whole knuckle. This one just came off with a few taps, so it was a few taps to the side as I discussed before, and a few taps there, and this one loosened fairly easy. So we'll just continue to remove that. So you understand how to remove the wiper blade. This plate sits over the top, and there's one that sits on the bottom, so you get 2. Once you remove the bolts from those plates, there'll be a split rubber seal in there, and there's the split, and that'll just undo. You can take that off and move it out of the way, and then beside then you've got your rubber wiper seal, and just a matter of just pulling it out by your hand. There's no need to force it out. Generally, if your diff's never been rebuilt, or you've never had the GQ wobbles, which most people have had, there'll be between the top of this plate and the knuckle, there's generally a shim in there, and there'll be one in the bottom as well. Or you could have multiple shims in there. It depends how the preload's been set up on the bearings. As stated, most people when they do rebuild it, if they've had the GQ wobbles, will probably generally take the plates out and put a bit more preload on, and then that'll also help eliminate it. This whole front end has been rebuilt, and those shims are removed. So generally there'll be shims. If you go to pry it, just be careful that you don't bend or wreck those shims because they're very thin. I've got the cap bolts are undone. I'm ready to take the kingpin top bearing out, and then the hub's ready to come release a bit of the pressure. As I say, this has been off before, so it should come out fairly easy like that. Again, put that out of the way. Okay. Now as we pull it out, push into the axle so it comes out a bit. Okay. Yeah, that was a lot easier that time. Again, if we look inside the bottom, hopefully I'll pick this up on the camera, you'll see there's a bit of mud on the inside near the bottom bearing. It's not too bad. So there's obviously a little bit of water got through the wiper blade on this side, but it's not very much. Because if you blow in your axle seal, what will happen is all in here will be full of oil. And generally what happens is you'll see coming out the top of the knuckle through your seals, you'll always see a lot of oil. The bad thing is if that happens, you've done an oil seal, replace it as soon as you can, because what it does, it gets into your wheel bearings, pushes away the grease, they then don't lubricate properly, and then you'll end up wrecking your wheel bearings as well. We have to remove the long axle shaft. So as we take hold of it, again, you can hear it there, just give it a bit of pressure off the inner oil seal and remove like so, then take out of the way. Again, if we take a look inside the knuckle here, I don't know how good the light's going to be on this. It's fairly clean. As I say, there's just a tiny little bit of yellow, rust, surface rust, but it's not very much. It's clean throughout. The seal looks good. And just a bit of cleaning on the outside. Okay, I've now removed all the bolts and the spring washers from the third member, or diff itself. Now what we're going to do is lift it out. So I've got it set up fairly stable on this table here, and the first thing what we're going to do is measure our backlash. And this says it's our backlash for our pinion and ring gear should be being 0.008 and 0.016 of an inch, thousandths of an inch. We've got our measuring tool set up ready. I've already dialed it in at 0, and what the clamp is there for is just to hold the pinion flange. So the idea is to hold the pinion flange still, and then we rock the ring gear backwards and forwards, and we measure that backlash. The needle up here will come up to just below the 10, and the biggest it's 0.106. Just while we're zoomed out, if we hold that still and we push the backlash, you see it's 0.08. Okay. Now again the same thing, we hold the pinion and we move the ring gear, and I'll just set that. So as you see it's 0.08, so that's at our lowest tolerance, so that's good. So now what we do is we measure that at say the 4 places, and hopefully if we haven't changed anything as far as when we start pulling the centre of the bits, everything will go back in the same spot. Okay, so the next step is to make your match marks on your caps so you know how to put them back together again. So I'll put 2 on that side. And 3 on that side. Just before I remove the cap bolts, as I just said, is what I will do is I'll mark the crown wheel location onto the carrier itself, so when I put it back together I know. Here we've got the serial number on the ring gear anyway, telling us the ratio, and we've also got a painted number 3 in there, so that's going to be my mark. So what I'll do is onto the actual carrier itself I'll just make 3 dots. Okay, so the next step is to remove this cap. Now in this, so we don't lose any of the backlash settings, we don't have to set anything up again, you've got the lock ring in here which will set the backlash up for the pinion and ring gear, and you've got this locking tab. Do not undo this bolt here, this smaller bolt here, keep that tight, and we want everything, as when we put it back together, to go back into the same place. So we take those 2 bolts out, and we keep everything matched together at this point. Okay. So there's what I'll say is the left side off. We don't adjust anything in here, we keep everything exactly where it is, so when it goes back together, everything is set up in the right position. So I'll place that there. And then there's the right side, exactly the same, nothing gets moved, everything's sitting in the one spot. So the next step is you can take your centre out. Now with the copper or brass hammer, just tap the ring off. Okay, the next task is to move the pin there, but holding the pin in is a roll pin that goes through the hole at the front and at the back. And as you can see at the back, it's staked over. I've hit it a little bit just to knock a bit of the staking off. And what we're going to do is put a pin punch through the front and knock that pin outwards. Okay, using the pin punch through the front, we've moved the pin out. I don't need to take it all the way out, which now means this pinion can come in and out, and that's going to be the next step. So the next point is we move that cross shaft out to take the side gears out. Should be able to spin it. And as we spin it, they'll come out the side. The next thing is to remove the gears. It goes on that side. Also see these, they've also got a thrust washer on them, and it's glued up a bit at the moment, but we get that thrust washer off because we're going to reuse that. Let's examine the thrust washers for wear. Is to grab the axle gear. This is the axle gear. It's got the splines in it. Now hopefully it's got the same amount of splines as that your axle's got. It needs a small smear, just enough just to hold that thrust washer again. Now you're going to stick that on that way, make sure it's all clean. The next is we get a spacer, goes inside the flatter side, goes towards the centre. Next part is to fit each side in. Okay, so we've got them in. We'll just give them a bit of a spin to make sure they're sitting in properly. Now we've just got the spacers in by themselves. Don't have the whole thing together. We get our pin. And we put our pin back in.